Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are concert pianist Mona Golabek and director, filmmaker Michael Sanchez. Award-winning, Grammy-nominated pianist Mona Golabek has appeared at the Hollywood Bowl, at the Kennedy Center in D.C., at the Royal Festival Hall in London, and with major orchestras worldwide. Mona's been the subject of a PBS special, several specials, including More Than Music and Concerts for Mona. And that one was with Zubin Mehta, whom I just saw in Berlin, conducting the orchestra last week.
Fantastic.
He was
Wow.
really great, yeah. So she did that with him, and you've heard her voice on the Romantic Hours, a satellite radio show. Mona was born in LA, right down the street from our West Hollywood studio. Her mother, I guess, took you all around the world, all around the country.
Well, she really did. You know how she did it? Through the piano lessons.
Ah.
Because the piano lessons were these magical lessons about her life. She always said that each piece of music tells a story.
Ah.
But Mona, let me tell you my story. So we would be in a Beethoven sonata, and out of nowhere she would say, well, Mona, did I ever tell you the time that Johnny King Kong read poetry to me at nighttime when the bombs came down? And I thought, who's Johnny King Kong? What is my mother talking about? Then we'd go into a Chopin nocturne, and she'd say, what about when Aaron whistled the Grieg piano concerto to me? So I began to understand that her youth were these stories, and the music would tell the stories. And she took me on this journey to Vienna through the music, and to London through the music.
Oh, so that's how it was. Was this all going on in your house down the street?
Exactly.
It was?
Yes. She would spin these stories in the piano lessons to myself and to my beloved sister Renee.
She was a child prodigy, your mother.
Yes.
And that's the story that you and Renee took with you all your lives.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
did you really want to be a pianist? And did Renee want to
Wow.
be a musician? Or was it just thrown at you because you were sitting at the piano at age 4?
I must tell you, no one has ever asked me that question, so that's really very compelling. It causes me to think. You know, we were children of people that had come out of the Holocaust and had survived that extraordinary period in history. And I think we wanted so much to bring our parents joy, and in some way maybe take away even their pain and their losses. I know for my mother, music was everything. It's what saved her life. It's what guided her through the dark times. It's what she turned to through those dark periods. So I think in some way she translated that or transmitted that to both my sister and myself.
So in a way, and I'm putting words in your mouth, you didn't have a choice. That was like a part of your life.
You are really right there.
Isn't it? It was a part of your life.
I've often said it was a destiny. It was preordained for me.
But the thing is, it could be a part of your life, but if they took me, if your mother took me, I have no musical ability. So it was obvious that you and your sister had the musical ability that was carried on from your mother and maybe her mother.
Yes. My grandmother was a pianist also. Mm-hmm. And my mother actually took away her pain when the Nazis walked in, when she would go to the piano and play Clair de Lune or the Moonlight Sonata of Beethoven. And then in the same way, I came along and I would play. But I think that my mother had such a passionate connection to music, and when you're a storyteller and you're passionate about what you want to transmit, you kind of seduce the person, whether it be a child or whomever is in your presence, to want to follow that path. So it became almost inevitable and delicious to go down.
But you had the ability. You obviously, both of you had the ability, and and your sister's children have the ability.
Yes, that's very true. Wow, you seem to know a lot about me.
I don't, but I see this pattern because
Yes.
I wonder if children have a choice. Then I was wondering if your sister's children had a choice. They were just brought up with music. I mean, if you're brought up with a lawyer, you don't necessarily go into the law.
Very true.
I don't know.
I think it's very true, and I think that we felt the weight and the.
But you had to have it in your body.
Well, I think that Renee and I did have the talent, no question about it.
I mean, it's a talent. It's a God-given talent. I mean, or do you think you develop it?
I would like to believe it's a God-given talent, and I would like to believe we had the talent, and then we worked very hard also at it, and then we had a marvelous teacher in our mother who was so passionate.
Which is so unbelievable, because most of the time a mother and children
Clash.
Exactly.
And I can't tell you how many times, Joan, people come backstage after a concert and come back to me and say, if only I had continued my piano lessons, if only I had continued practicing.
Right.
I regret it now. So many people say that.
Because they see your talent, and they hear your storytelling, and they see that this was maybe a part of their life, but maybe they weren't talented. Maybe they would have only stopped at a certain point.
But he goes full circle to what you were saying. They said, why didn't I listen to my mother? Why didn't I keep it up? Because it would be a wonderful friend for me to have today, to go to the piano and to play. And I regret that I let it go.
Right. It's such a I don't know. The idea that you can sit down and make music is always phenomenal to me.
It is.
I just can't believe that somebody could sit there and do that, because it's so foreign, and yet we enjoy it so much.
Yes.
These PBS documentaries that were portraying you, were they all, was that like a lead-in to your storytelling and your one-woman show?
Well, I think that because my mother was a storyteller, I became inherently sort of a storyteller. The PBS specials were wonderful. I went into a woman's prison, and I spoke to women inmate in that documentary that you mentioned called More Than the Music. With Zubin Mehta, it was a concerto actually that was written for me, so that was called Concerto for Mona. I think it was more that when I went on the road, and I knew that classical music had a kind of esoteric, sort of had a difficulty reaching audiences, I felt that I wanted to go out and tell the stories of the composers. I wanted to tell about their romantic lives.
But you knew it, and you also were pretty close to it from your mother.
Exactly. She talked to me about Chopin and Josquin. She talked to me about Franz Liszt and Marie Dagoult, who abandoned her husband and ran off with Franz Liszt. So I would hear all these stories. She told me about Paganini with his chocolates, his women, and his gambling. So they became delicious stories for me.
It was like gossip from that genre.
Yes.
Gossip of the genre.
And also, she said, Mona, music tells the story of someone's life. That nocturne that Chopin wrote is a love song for Georges Sand. It's not just black notes on white paper. It's telling a story of what that man felt. So I understood that music tells a story of our lives.
That's so true. And when you say that, everybody wrote, I mean, not everybody, but most of those composers wrote from a personal point of view.
Totally, totally. Absolutely. You see all this music. It's just that the audiences today maybe don't know that. They're not, perhaps they've not been given the opportunity to learn.
No, we haven't been taught.
And most young people, where the audiences are going, they're relating more to music that's rap, pop, on the internet, with lyrics that they can relate to. And so I think that they feel a distance to classical music because it doesn't have the words in a way.
But when you're saying that, it's personal too. They're telling their stories in rap. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so it's really the same thing no matter where you are.
Yes.
Your show, The Pianist of Willesden Lane, is that right?
Willesden Lane, yes. Based on the book that I wrote called The Children of Willesden Lane.
Oh, and then when did you write the book?
The book was published about 8 years ago. It has been adopted into curriculum across America. Many young people have been reading it. I go across America and do these citywide reads. I just came from Alabama, where the entire 9th grade of the city of Montgomery, Alabama, read the book, and then they were bussed into the Davis Theater, and I did the performance for them.
Oh, how great. Oh, that's so wonderful.
It was really very exciting.
And
Yeah.
especially in Alabama, especially in any city, to bring children in like that and have you talk to them so they know who you are or what you are. They've read about you.
Right.
And then to see you.
And then to see it. And I have to point out that that was particularly meaningful because that's the city of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. And it was an audience of mostly African American students reading, African American students in the 21st century, reading about a Jewish teenager in the 20th century.
Yeah, that's so great.
During World War II. And yet they related to the messages of my mother's story, that if you have something to hold on to in the darkest of time, you'll make it through.
Well, that's what your mother kept saying, didn't
Yes.
she? That was her thing. How did the book then get to the stage?
My path crossed with the incomparable Hershey Felder.
Who is
And-
so talented.
Yeah, brilliant beyond belief. Brilliant. And I came to watch one of his shows, and then I rang him up. We knew of each other as musicians. I was so taken with his Beethoven performance. I rang him up and said, could I ask for some advice? I have a dream to take my mother's story and bring it to the stage. Maybe you could just listen to me a little bit and give me an opinion and an advice. So I came to the Geffen Theater.
Because he was at the Geffen.
Yes, he was doing, at that point, the Gershwin show.
And that's where your show is, at the Geffen.
Yes, that's where it's
Okay.
going to open.
Okay.
So I came down there. It was an afternoon. He put me on the stage. He sat in the audience. It was completely empty. He had his iPhone. Out of the corner of my eye, I kept looking to see, and I kept thinking, he hates this.
Is he listening to
this
me?
This is no good. I know this is not going to work. And then I thought, maybe he's falling asleep. He must be exhausted or something. So I finished, and I thought,
But what were you doing? Had you written the play? Had you written it already?
Wonderful point. I had a sort of a genesis of it, or
I see.
a kind of an embryo of it,
I see.
sort of a shortened version of what I had done around the country for the students
I see, I see.
in the
Okay.
third person.
I see.
And so I did that for him, and then I turned to the audience where he was. He looked up and he said, "Okay, thank you. I will produce you."
Fantastic.
My mouth fell open.
Because he's into himself and his own stories and his own being on stage.
I was just shocked. I was so shocked. I was so stunned. I was so moved that he would take me under his wing and give me the opportunity. And we spent the next couple of years. I would follow him around the country. I went to Europe. We worked on a script
you
together.
Did. Oh, that's fantastic.
And-
So now it's finished. It's coming to the Geffen. It will be at the Geffen.
Yes.
Are there other stages that you're thinking of?
Well, my dream is to bring it across America, and Hershey has said that if it all goes well, God willing, he will see where we will take it next. I hope to
great.
bring it to Off-Broadway and then ultimately to the London Theatre.
Fantastic. That we will keep our fingers crossed for that.
Thank you.
But before we leave, I think that whole thing, that influence on your sister's children, and that thing that the words your mother said, hold on to your music,
It will be
is a nonprofit.
Yes, thank you for asking.
And I think that's
Yes.
fantastic. I wanted to mention that. Just tell us quickly what that is.
Thank you. We have a nonprofit called Hold On to Your Music. You can visit it online, holdontoyourmusic.org. We've been very blessed by several foundations helping us to create videos, teaching the book, teachers' resources. Teachers download it from all over the country to use it. We send out books to help school systems to adopt the book. And I think to date now about 150,000 students have read the book across America.
That's so great.
So-
Congratulations.
Well, I'm honored to be here today. Thank
And
you
good
so
luck.
much.
Good. I can't wait.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching, Mona. And we'll be right back with Michael Sanchez, the filmmaker. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Filmmaker-director Michael Sanchez was born and raised in Vancouver, British Columbia, and went to the University of British Columbia, where, as an arts major, he studied music. He decided to follow his heart to making films, even though he was such a great musician. You say you were 10 years in the trenches learning how to make a film. What, who, where, how did you learn that craft? You didn't study it in school, did you?
No, I didn't study it in school, but you know, for starters, making films is a lot like making music.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, the ingredients and the way you plan it out, and you know, I mean, the real lesson there is starting with nothing and following it through till you have something, right? And so there's a commonality there. And once I'd finished studying in university, I went to work in the film industry, where firsthand I got to see, you know, a lot of the greats actually work.
Were you in Canada at the time or down here?
I started in Canada.
Because it's a great filmmaking country, right?
Yeah, and you know, it's a little crazy up there, so it's very easy to get involved with little or no experience. And you know, I cut my teeth up there, so to speak.
Well, that's great, because that's what you, I guess, if did you fall in love with film? Is that the idea?
It was more out of necessity to fund my other pursuits.
Oh.
Yeah, but you know, things came hand in hand, and as I was working in film, a music project came up and brought me down to LA. So I stopped working in film, and then I focused on music down here in Los Angeles. And then when that ended, then I started working in film again.
When you work on a music project, what would you have been doing?
Playing bass in rock and roll bands.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Do you compose as well?
Yeah.
And so when you were working with these filmmakers, did you ever do music for them?
No.
They didn't.
No, I was basically, you know, a stagehand or
I see, just learning on the job.
Yeah, that's
learning
right.
on the stage.
Yeah.
And what films did you work with, or what directors did you meet along the way?
Oh, I've worked with lots of different directors. Most recently, I've been working with Oliver Stone. I worked on Wall Street in New York, and then a movie, Savages, that's coming out. I just saw the trailer
so
today.
You're still working?
Yeah,
in
on the
that.
side, yeah.
Still doing that,
Yeah.
even though you're directing and producing your own films.
Yeah.
You made a documentary.
Yeah.
You're still working on feature films with other directors.
From time to time. I haven't had a chance lately.
That was this is probably a big budget, big studio, but in when you started, they were, I'm assuming, independent films.
No.
They weren't.
I've always done the big budget films.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I could tell you, listen, I did a series of small commercials, but the first time I was on a movie set was an Arnold Schwarzenegger film. I mean.
Oh, so you were with big things.
That was
right?
just the day one, and I've just always stayed there.
And what did you do? How did you absorb this learning ability?
Well, first of all, the job I had was doing video assist, so I was always beside the cameras, so I was looking at every single shot. So it was easy to know this different setups and those kinds of things. And it kind of made its way. I started using video cameras around sets a lot more. And
oh, you brought your video? Did
yeah.
you brought your own camera?
Yeah, and I essentially did video work for film sets.
Your parents were in the arts.
Yeah.
And so they were very supportive of your art career, your music career.
I wouldn't say that.
They weren't? I was going to ask you if they were supportive of your film career.
Oh, well, yeah, they're very, very supportive of the film career,
Oh,
obviously.
so it's the opposite. I thought maybe they would be more like, oh, we wanted him to be a pianist or a bass guitar player.
Well, you know, I did go to study to be a pianist, and my sister actually got a lot further than I did with the orchestra and the whole thing. Yeah, but, you know, I was playing the Scriabins and doing those types of things at a high level for a while, but then, you know, the rock and roll band started up, and
that was it?
Straight downhill from
Gone.
there. Yeah.
How did Save Our Souls start? That's the documentary that you want to talk about today.
Sure, yeah, of course. Well, Save Our Souls, you know, I was in New Orleans working on Green Lantern.
Oh, you were actually there working on a film.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, and, you know, and then the weekends come, and, you know, it was just one of these things where I grabbed the camera and headed out there, and we started, just by chance, the whole thing got on its way. And then once the film was finished and moved out of New Orleans, actually got some money together and visited another 8 times.
Well, how did the story come about? Who wrote the story?
They wrote the story. It's a true story. It's their lives. You know, I mean.
Tell us about it, because we say save our souls, but we haven't mentioned that it's about burlesque,
Well,
right?
it's
Maybe
yeah.
it isn't about burlesque.
It's not about burlesque. It's about people that happen to do burlesque.
Okay, that's good.
But it's a story of loss and redemption and overcoming the odds. And these are people from all different walks of life that do this sort of cabaret performance. And
So you call burlesque cabaret performance?
I think that's how I would call it. I'm sure, burlesque dancers have their own terminology they like to use. But it is. I mean, I would consider it cabaret. I mean, look, a burlesque show can take place in a giant stadium with a rock band to a small dive bar with no stage at all.
Right.
So is it cabaret? I mean, in the same way that rock and roll might be, sure.
You talk about the people in the film, the women in the film, coming from different backgrounds. I know there's dancers, seamstresses, teachers. Lawyers too, somebody who runs a restaurant.
Yeah.
Different things like.
Yeah.
How did you find them?
Well, I was just walking down the street and I walked into, I mean, if you've ever been to New Orleans, there's, music on every corner, and there was just literally, and there was just a lineup outside of this bar, and I ended up walking in and meeting the great Ben Wisdom and seeing him in his southern drawl on stage.
That's the MC.
Yeah.
And that was the first time you came in contact with him?
Yeah, actually my concept was to kind of do a piece on him and his struggles being this, great, big, lovable guy, surrounded by, these burlesque dancers who, I think the contrast is obvious. But as you start shooting and as things developed further and further, different stories started to emerge, and different storylines became more accessible to me, because I guess there was an augmented level of trust, as we were proceeding. So.
So friends told friends, and you could go to different shows.
Well, more like the girls saw what the other girls were saying.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So he's okay. Michael's okay. We can talk to him. Or was there any reluctance in the beginning?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
They're like, who's this yahoo with the camera? He just wants to see us naked.
Exactly.
And,
and there have been so many. I mean, I know there's a couple of documentaries on burlesque. So I was wondering why that caught your eye. I've had other filmmakers on who've done burlesque documentaries, either starting out, how they start out, and how they go to burlesque school, or the idea of actually the art of it.
The art of it, yeah, I've seen a couple of those. This is about people, and it's a cheat to say it's a burlesque movie, because it's not. It's about people that.
That's why you Save Our Souls, which is a different kind of approach to it.
The Save Our Souls moniker is actually is a kind of thing that I use to mislead the audience, because in the end you should walk away with, these people don't need saving. They're saving themselves, right? So it kind of draws in a line of judgment that I try to untangle by revealing different things about these characters, right? So it's there's a whole mechanism at work, and the title is part of that.
What's next for you?
Well, we've got a couple of things in the works. I've got a production company called High Water with my two partners who are up in Vancouver, and we've got a horror that's ready to go that we're going to begin casting in a couple weeks. Think Rosemary's Baby with hardcore electronic music.
Oh, so are you going to play? Will you play in it? Will you write the music?
I'm sure I'll write some.
Tell me about the Save Our Souls. Did you write any of the music for that?
I wrote a lot of the piano music in it.
Because there's a lot of music in it.
Yeah. Robert Davis, who's an excellent musician and good friend of mine, donated an unreleased album from his band Mary Andy. That's where a lot of the rock and roll music comes from. And he played a lot of guitar on it. I have another friend here in Hollywood, Lawrence Katz, who played a lot of guitar on it.
You could tell that there was someone who loved music.
Yeah,
from this film, because of and here you are, the person who loves music, the director, the filmmaker.
Well, good music is so cinematic. I mean, the first thing a good music does is makes you conjures an image, right?
Right.
So if you start marrying that with your other images, I mean, it's amazing. You can watch somebody, this was told to me by a friend of mine. You could watch children swinging on swings, right? And it's just like the most beautiful thing. And you added untuned piano to it. It's like, oh God, they're gonna die.
But that is how a composer works, I guess, right?
Yeah. It's a super, super powerful thing. I mean, it's just right behind the image is the audio in all ways, beyond music. You know, even sound design.
And sound design, yeah. What is sound design?
Well, I think it's just that, you know, it's the design of the sound. It encompasses everything from music to sound effects.
Is it like how to put the music in, sound design?
But it also includes sound effects, like if somebody's walking into the wind, you hear this whoosh, swirling thing and stereo noises and how that interacts with it. It's basically everything you hear.
I see.
You know, I'm not a sound designer, and I'm sure.
But it takes a special person to do sound design.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
It's like a skill of its own?
Oh, it adds a flavor. I mean, look, I mean, Walter Murch, he's an editor and a sound designer at the same time, right? Super powerful.
So when you edit, you can put your own
Yeah.
sound design in?
Yeah.
I got it.
And that was the thing for me in some ways, is that I'm like, you know, this could use a piano piece here, and I just turn the piano and I'd play it, and it's like, wow, does that cut some time out? Instead of sending it to somebody, listening, bringing it back, change that part, you know, you're able to plug things right in, you know, so.
That's really brilliant. Well, that's the same way when you're working on a feature film and you take your video out and you make your story and your documentary,
Yeah.
like kind of on the side.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I mean, at this level of the game, it's about working smarter, you know, and trying to get
I
things
think
done.
this is great because it shows how you can use all your skills to do, and maybe, I don't know if that's union-wise or what it is, but in Canada you can do it, right?
Oh yeah, it's union, but I mean, really, I think you hit on something there. It's about, for me personally, being able to use everything I can to express myself, and that's really what drives me, right? Because then I feel like fulfilled in some kind of way. I mean, everything that I know is getting poured in to something. It does amazing things, you know, for the individual.
Well, it was very enlightening talking to you. I'm so glad you're so talented. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us. Keep writing. Email me at jaquinn1 at AOL.com and 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles, 90017. See you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.